You want to know one thing we haven't talked about over here? And guys, we're running out of time. Who's going to win, Jake Paul or Nate Diaz? When we discussed this fight, we haven't discussed who do we think's going to win. And approach is so important, right? And you've seen this, guys. I'm telling you. Rules on the playground carry over to the professional ring. Whether that's the octagon or in this case, the squared circle. The rules of the playground still carry over. What made the whole school talk about two guys that were going to go meet behind the blah, blah, blah at 3 o'clock, right? It's the same thing where some of those died off. Hey, you guys don't have to do that. Nobody wants to see it. To the whole school's talking about it. Gets to the principal and y'all come out to watch the fight. And he's standing there saying, hey, I heard about it. It's the same rules. And there are times, and you've seen it plenty of times, where someone was going to take on someone at 3 o'clock, and this someone was pissed, and this someone thought, I'm out. Our skills haven't changed. My strength hasn't changed. Our experiences haven't changed. Whatever we're mad about hasn't changed. He's a lot more angry than I am. I'm out. We've seen that so many times. And a lot of times it's a bluff, but a lot of times it's real. So I just bring to you who has more to lose. And what an interesting question, would you say? May I tell you what I think you're going to say? I think that you're going to say Jake Paul. And I would step in to tell you that on a level of emotion, and who would be more embarrassed, and who would find this more unacceptable, and who is taking a bigger risk. See, people are forgetting the risk that Nate took to get here. Francis Ngannou and what he did contractually stole all the headlines. Nate did the exact same thing, except he did it right. He didn't get the headlines. Nate fought out his contract. Nate didn't run out the contract. Francis ran out the contract. I'm not kicking Francis, by the way. I'm just saying that these things went on simultaneously. Francis ran out the contract. He had another fight, or he could wait an entire year. He waited the entire year. He didn't do the fight. Nate had the exact same situation, except he did the fight. That's how he exhausted his contract. He did it the right way. He did what was intended. He did when all the gentlemen sat down and reached across the table and shook hands in the first place. Everybody understanding the intent the same, and that's what Nate did to get free, to be able to go into boxing, to be in this position in the first place. And by rumor, more than rumor, I can absolutely confirm it for you, he turned down a trilogy fight against Conor McGregor. That's how important this was for him to go over and be able to box. And I don't know what part of it was so important to him. We were all led to believe it was the money. Fine. It could be. I mean, Nate's contract is beautiful in MMA, that Conor McGregor and points on pay-per-view. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. I don't know that I'm convinced that it's more over here. I think this is true love. I think it's one of his ways to serve his coaches, serve Richard Perez. I don't know these things. It's what I think. But I know that I've seen Nate sparring, and I know that's a handful. And I know that there is a narrative out there that Jake is going to beat him and that Jake is going to knock him out. Do you really believe that? But do you really believe that? And you would have some evidence. I mean, by the way, Nate is fighting higher weight-wise than Nate's ever fought. I have not gone to Sherdog and actually added them up, but I could. And I'm confident in telling you that Nate did more fights at 155 than he ever did at 170, and he's never fought at 185, where this fight is scheduled. So if you were to go look at Nate's career, you look at the times that he's fallen down. RDA, by example. George Masvidal, by example. And think that there was something wrong with Nate's chin. I don't know. I don't know about that. He recovered on the ground. There was even arguments that, he took this shot, but then he wanted to go to the ground to use the jiu-jitsu anyway, and it wasn't a clean knockdown. I'm not here to begrudge that, but you're talking about 12-ounce gloves. Talking about a lot fewer things to look for. Right boxing, I mean, the guy's got 2 hands. There's only 4 punches that are legal. You got the jab, the cross, the hook, and the uppercut. It's all you've got. You guy that might slip in an overhand right, something along these lines. But for the most part, do you really believe that he's going to get cut? Do you really believe that he can't deal the pound? Do you really believe he's going to get knocked out? Do you really believe that if you believe he's going to get knocked down, that he doesn't come to? I don't know that I think that you think that. And then you've got a scoring system in boxing. And it's a little bit confusing. Amateur boxing is very straightforward. This part of the glove touches that part of the body. Judges see it, judges give a point. Professional boxing is more complicated. I can't think of a fight that Mike Tyson out-touched his opponent. He would touch him, boom, much harder, boom, he would touch him much harder, he would do more damage. The judge had the right to be subjective and objective in that situation. It just makes it a little bit tough. I'm just suggesting for you, like when I watch Nate spar and he's doing the same thing that you guys have always seen him do, which is incredibly high volume. He is nonstop on a guy. He's nonstop bothering you. And Jake is more traditional. In theory, the judges are going to show some favor to that volume. In theory, over the course of an evening, if you start leaning towards decision, judges are going to show favoritism towards that. They don't have to. Just talking to you about it. I'm not telling you who's going to win. I'm just talking about it. I'm talking to you about the approach and the risk that Jake is taking. I will point out one thing that I personally find to be interesting, which is when Jake first brought this specific idea to the marketplace, it was a 2-fight deal. We'll do one in boxing and we'll do one in MMA. And that was a tip of the hat to say, I'm going to beat you in boxing, but I will give you an opportunity to redeem yourself in your sport of MMA. And when Nate actually came to the table, he said, no thanks. I'm not going to need this trump card. I'm not going to need to square the deal because I'm not going to lose this one in the first place. Let's just box. I think that that's very interesting. I think that's compelling. I think that is the number one storyline going into this fight. That when Nate came to the table and allegedly had the opportunity to get 2 fights and give himself a little insurance policy, give himself a little buffer, which I would tell you as an athlete, that would have been attractive to me. And he right there in closed doors said, I don't need it. I think that's interesting. And we look at 2 guys that are going into something, which one of them truly believes in themselves? It does matter. It's not just which one can convince more people. Which one do you really believe is convinced of it? It's an interesting question. I'd like to know what you think.